What do you get when you combine an Apache gunship with a F-22 Raptor? You get a whale with a 30mm autocannon and Hellfire missile launchers. Hello and welcome back to the Tiberium Armory, and this episode, which is about the ORCA range of high-speed VTOL airframes that have become so ubiquitous in the CNC universe that Nod copied them in the Third Tiberium War. I've already done a video on one of the ORCA variants, but a second about the full package shouldn't be too much half a year later. The ORCA, as introduced by the first war, is a VTOL aircraft taking a similar role to a helicopter gunship, but with the ability to fly much faster and further than any helicopter of similar size or cost. It is unknown whether the ORCA name is an acronym or not, with many in the community believing it is a name similar to naming the Abrams tank Abrams, and not Future Tank Mk1. But some acronyms for ORCA have been suggested by the community, such as Operational Reconnaissance and Combat Aircraft, Omni-Role Combat Aircraft, Overland Recon, Carry and Assault, and the original really cool aircraft. My favorite of these is the Operational Reconnaissance and Combat Aircraft, but the one I believe is most well fits the aircraft is actually Osprey redesigned for combat assignments, which implies a lineage from the Osprey line of aircraft that were first released for assignments in 2007 in real life, but much sooner in the universe of Command & Conquer. As with the invasion of Nod into the domains of the religious and political in the years before the entry of Tiberium into the world stage, funding, which was the principal delayer of the V-22 Osprey's debut, was not a problem. As the First Tiberium War approached, the need for a extremely maneuverable, compact, and competent gunship for use in assault roles that either fixed-wing or helicopter aircraft were not suited for became apparent. And with the funding and research available to the G7 countries, no expenses were spared in the creation of one of the first of many ORCA platforms. Specifically, the requirements for the aircraft were that it needed to be small enough to fit on a train car, and specially designed trucks needed to be powerful enough to act as both a VTOL and reach speeds comparable to many jet aircraft, and needed to be able to accept many different loadouts to suit a variety of assault missions. As a separation from the requirements of the V-22 to be able to load and cargo troops, the Osprey-derived ORCA was initially designed to be more of a standard gunship, able to hit hard and fast in roles traditionally assigned to either fighter or helicopter gunship roles. This proved to be a massive success as the Cold War and early 21st century military assets of the world began to be used up in quick succession, and the ORCA stepped in and fulfilled many of the roles of vehicles that were rapidly being lost. Not long into the First Tiberium War, the Brotherhood of Nod got hold of the ORCA designs and field tested it for themselves, but ultimately, and short-sightedly, decided to use their own technology applied to their Apache and Warsaw packed gunships, likely as a cost-savings move in the midst of the war. Rapid adoption of a new technology on top of so many other new and exciting and expensive designs, as well as projects like Cabal that were still being worked on, would likely have been prohibitively expensive even for the faction controlling most of the world's supply of Tiberium. This lack of interest in the design, however, would change, as in the Third Tiberium War, this technology was appropriated in the Venom aircraft line, a series of ultra-efficient ORCA variants that the Brotherhood would modify to make its optimal use of its stealth and disruption abilities. But the Venom is another video all of its own, so sit tight for that video in the near future. The second major version of the ORCA that would come the updated form of the gunship, a shorter-range strike versions that mirrored more the original helicopter design. This was coupled by a new variant called the ORCA Fighter, which was an ORCA that was set up to be much more stable at high speeds, incorporating small and mostly fixed wings to the design and operating at longer ranges. This ORCA came equipped with many attached anti-air and anti-ground missile systems that allowed it to take control of the skies, although its main rival, the Banshee, was an even more advanced VTOL aircraft capable of even more impressive feats of maneuverability with much more exotic weapons. The main advantage that these new, more specialized ORCA variants had were the resistance to the ion storms that played havoc with the internals of traditional aircraft. This advantage carried over to the ORCA bomber, which carried much larger, smart and dumb munitions into heavily disrupted airspace. And the ORCA transport and carry-all, the first non-combat versions of the ORCA, that were designed to facilitate transport of infantry and heavy vehicles into an ion-blasted landscape. The ORCA bombers were an even more heavy design, incorporating less aerodynamic shapes, but more powerful engines, allowing them to carry up to multiple 1,000-pound bombs. The ORCA transport is an early non-combat aircraft, lightly armored and powerful enough to carry large amounts of infantry across large distances in harsh weather and terrain, and resembles more of a semi-truck with jet engines more than a plane or helicopter, but is easily one of the top favorites among GDI infantry for fast, safe in- and exfiltration between battlefields. The ORCA carry-all, the first of the powerful airships, was designed around the Mammoth Mk2 walkers, each one being able to transport these massive walkers across large distances, delivering massive firepower to hotly contested war zones. Each of these craft resembled more of a flying gantry than a traditional aircraft, but with the ability to carry multiple tanks or light walkers into battle quickly, it is certainly more than capable of proving its worth on the battlefield. Lastly, for the Second Tiberium War was the ORCA command ship, which is an orbit-capable version of the ORCA, designs that was much, much larger, and based off of a variant designed for maintenance and expansion of the ion cannon network. This large design was only lightly armored, but fairly well armored, able to make use of extremely efficient engines to propel itself into orbit and control entire battlefields at the same time. It makes use of extremely powerful sensor communication suite built to cut through all interference and communicate with the EVA network, coordinating with forces around the world. This sort of craft was incredibly important in the days before communication technology could operate in heavily irradiated areas like the red zones, where direct presence was required to take and direct battle. After the Second Tib War, these craft saw use mostly in aiding the expansion of the GDI into space, helping to install the new ion cannon network as well as the basis for GDI spatial logistical systems. After the Third War, these craft would be reintroduced as candidates for Earth's interstellar navy, having been upgraded with powerful ion engines. The Third Tiberium War saw the continuation of the ORCA project, with more modular A-15 ORCA gunships fulfilling many battlefield roles, with help from bomber versions that deviated only slightly from the Second War designs. These later models of ORCA also benefited from the use of mind-machine interfaces, which were developed by both NOD and GDI separately and at different times. This explains the incredible agility that these crafts have despite their slight size and their immense complexity. Each one of these crafts will be getting its own video at some point into the future, where I go into finer details about each one. But for now, that was my video on the ORCA series of aircraft that have defined GDI air power in the decades since the arrival of the Crystal. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you have an idea what might strengthen or reduce the strength of my argument, or if you just want to start a conversation, please comment it down below. If you come up with something great, I will host it as a follow-up video and credit you heavily. If you like videos about Tiberium, Red Alert, or in the future, CNC Generals, then why don't you just subscribe and hit the bell icon. I post once or twice every 2 weeks. If you really like the content, consider supporting the channel by sharing the video around, or by making use of either a Patreon link or the Amazon affiliate link. No pressure to do either. I love you either way. As a last bit at the end here, I want to thank Bad Guy 292 for his contribution in coming up with the Osprey to ORCA route. That was pure genius. Thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.